continued reckless borrowing to finance Mr. Museveni and his family's lifestyles, extravagant lifestyle, and his insatiable appetite for state power. Well, the stated objective in the budget framework paper, which is the draft of next financial year's budget that is under consideration by Parliament, the stated objective in it is to increase average household income and improving quality of life. The real and hidden objective of this budget is to finance the extravagant life of Mr. Museveni and his family, and for him to access money to continue renting support. If you look at the budget framework paper, or you can call it the draft budget that has been presented before Parliament, in real terms it has increased. Last financial year's budget was 48.1 trillion. This budget, which ends in June, it is being increased to 49.9 trillion. That's the proposal before Parliament. What you need to understand is that the servicing of the debt, payment of the principal and the interest is increasing. In this budget that we are concluding in June, this item called the Treasury Operations under Minister of Finance, you see they camouflage it for the public not to understand it very quickly. But they have an item on our budget which is called the Treasury Operations. This financial year, it is 15.1 trillion shilling. 15.1 trillion shilling. And on average, we pay interest of more than 3 trillion shilling on the loans contracted, especially from commercial banks. So this financial year, it is 15.1. In the draft budget before Parliament now, it is increasing to 17.5 trillion. It's called the Treasury Operations. If you go looking for loans, they will not put it there. They don't want you to know. So they call it Treasury Operations. So in the budget that has been in the draft that has been presented before Parliament, called the budget framework paper, this item is increasing to 17.5 trillion shilling. What this means, because you just have to get the average. If you divide the budget by the items, that debt financing and interest payment now constitute 35% of our total budget. One item of repaying loans and interest on those loans, it is now at 35% of the entire budget. The trouble is that people listening to the budget are being deceived, and they also believe this budget that is presented before Parliament, including the subsisting budget of 48, it's now 49. Almost all the money in the budget is committed. I have told you 35% of the money in the budget is to pay the loan and the interest. Another about 35 is to pay salaries and allowances. What government remains with to spend, like if they want to do a new road or construct a school, is less than 10 trillion shillings. In fact, it's just about 6 trillion shilling. But they will present a budget to the country that we have a budget of 49 trillion shilling, and the public will believe actually that there is money that the government is going to spend. Yet this money is already committed. I have told you 35% of this money is for debt repayment and interest. So therefore, as the entire budget has increased by 1.8 trillion from 48 to 49. But debt financing has increased by 2.3 trillion shilling. So they will present it as if this budget has grown, the economy is growing, but actually we are in distress. And you need to listen to this. These are figures mainly from Bank of Uganda. They will give you a report of Bank of Uganda of December 2022. I've asked our team to give you at least the pages that are relevant. But if you want, I can also send it to you by WhatsApp. State of the Economy Report, December 2022 by Bank of Uganda. In this report, Bank of Uganda says that the data, I have already given you the figures, I don't have to repeat. Maybe a breakdown that the external debt, money we have borrowed from China and everybody, is now at 44 trillion, which is 12.4 billion US dollar. And the money that we have borrowed from commercial banks, I told you Museveni now even goes to money lender to pick money to run a government. Money we have borrowed from commercial banks is 25.4 trillion, which is 7.2 billion. And China remains our biggest lender. We now owe China 11 trillion shilling, which is 3 billion US dollar. That's the money we owe them. But of course they have now lined up requests to borrow more. You will see Parliament processing more borrowing. But at the moment we owe China 11 trillion Uganda shilling or 3 billion US dollar. The sad story, if you read the Bank of Uganda report, Bank of Uganda reports, and I want to quote them, domestic debt interest payment continued to be in breach, reflecting liquidity pressures on the domestic revenue to finance the domestic debt liabilities at the expense of other priorities in the budget. So this money that is collected from you, because every Ugandan pays tax by URA, a chunk of it goes to debt repayment. As a result, the items in the budget now receive less because you have a debt to pay. And I've told you 35% of next year's budget is going to be for debt repayment. Bank of Uganda, Minister of Finance, I have done the average myself, it comes to 35. But if you look at the Bank of Uganda report, it says 35% of revenue collected is what we use to pay debt. Bank of Uganda also reports that as a result of failure to raise enough money to repay our external debt, we have even now encroached on our reserves. You see, a country, as all of you are aware, is supposed to have reserves. Just in case of a calamity, you use that money to continue running life. So you import and goods and services using that money in the reserve. I think the Russians keep their reserves in gold. Some other countries keep it in dollars. It is physical. It is there. You're not supposed to touch it unless you have a problem. So that money by Bank of Uganda, we have encroached on it to repay debt. Because external debt, once it falls due, you are supposed to pay. You simply have no option. Our reserve was at 4.3 billion US dollar. But you had to go and pick money there. We have started picking money there to pay debt. It has now reduced to 3.6 billion. The 4.3 billion, as it was before we started encroaching on it, was enough to guarantee export of goods and service for 4.8 months in case Uganda was in trouble. Now we have reduced to 3.5 months. This is according to Bank of Uganda, and I've given you their report. The reason we have encroached on the reserves is because, as I said, every year now we have to pay 1.3 billion US dollar. That is our external debt servicing as a country. We have defaulted on the domestic debt, especially on interest payment, but you cannot default on external debt. If the Chinese want their money that you have used to construct Entebbe, this expressway, you have to pay. You have no option. But with banks here, you can, and the figures I am giving you, Minister of Finance has been very intelligent, but by half. They do not include domestic areas. They also don't include the monies that they have guaranteed, what they call contingency liability. For example, Pineti, this friend of Museveni, who deals in furniture but was given a contract to construct a state-of-art hospital at Entebbe, went to borrow money which we guarantee at Uganda. That becomes a loan, because failure by Pineti to repay, the government of Uganda will have to repay. All that money is not included when Minister of Finance is calculating Uganda's debt. They also don't include domestic areas, people who have supplied the government, who have supplied Murago, who supply ministries, everything that they use, from furniture to stationery to food. If they are going to include that, this country will be in trouble. The reason we have, as FDC, focused more on the debt is to allow the citizens to understand the budget process as it goes on. We borrow to pay what? Now, that is the conversation that the country is involved in. Each ministry is presenting its priorities before Parliament. I have told you that we borrow, but after borrowing, what do? Buy medals. I have seen Jim Mwezi presenting a bill that we need to buy medals. I have also seen a request by Museveni. He wants more vehicles. You will see requests by everybody. So that's where we are as a country, and that's how you need to understand the budget. You need to understand it from that background, that we're a country that is riddled with the debt. We continue borrowing, but after borrowing, what do we finance? Last year, Museveni's residence, a state house, consumed 900 billion shilling. He first took 688, then he came for 200 more in supplementary. So you borrow to finance Museveni's residence to a tune of 1 trillion shilling. That's the money Museveni uses, and that doesn't include money in his office. And who does he pay? Of course, I don't have to go through the list, but it's very painful. Now everybody in Museveni's family accesses a payroll. They are the ones we are paying. If you have access to his bedroom and you are a relative, you live with an appointment letter. That's how all of them. Look at the list of presidential advisors. Salim Saleh, his brother, is a presidential advisor. His son, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, is a presidential advisor. Ruawogo, who marries his daughter, is also a presidential advisor. His sister, Violet Kajubiri, works as vice chairperson of the Education Service Commission. The husband, Museveni's Muko, is the one running Uganda Printing and Publishing Corporation. He's a German. And so on and so forth. So all this money we borrow, but when we borrow, what do we do? Listen to the conversation in Parliament when they are making presentation. That's why I wanted today at this press conference to issue a citizens' alert. First of all to the citizens themselves, but also to those who are lending Uganda money. In fact, we intend to make it formal, right to all the lending institutions. I have given you a list of those that have given us money. This list is part of the press statement. The list is in the Ministry of Finance report on debts. Lending Uganda money from Abu Dhabi Fund, China, India, Korea, even Nigeria is lending Uganda. Iraq, who are in war, at war. Kuwait Fund. So this list they will give you. So you're going to issue a red alert to all of them, that when you see Museveni or his minister or his agents, please on our behalf don't lend them money. If they continue lending them, I have forgotten the name of a country that refused to pay its debt. Said, see, because Museveni is about to go, he likes it or not. At least his age doesn't keep him around. So if he refuses to go by ballot, by any other means, the age will not allow him. Of course, African leaders are without shame. You saw Bouteflika, who was being wheeled to a nomination center in a wheelchair. He can't walk, but he had some people who are really pushing him to go and nominate until the people of Algeria said, please, no, this is an embarrassment. So the point is, when Museveni goes finally, and he will, there is a very huge possibility of Ugandans refusing to repay this debt. Because if you look at the domestic borrowing, especially domestic borrowing, the 25 billion shilling is money that we borrow to finance the luxuries. Museveni now has a fleet of 13. When you see one convoy, their time was 13. It is not one convoy. Many of you don't know. There will be one in Ntungamo, in Rwachitura, in where. So when he's flown by his helicopter, he doesn't wait for a convoy from Entebbe. There will be one waiting there. Now they are 13. He has a presidential jet these days because of his age. He doesn't like traveling. But that presidential jet has staff. We pay them. You saw presidents who went to meet an American president flying by Emirates. Because if in a year you fly twice, why do you need a presidential jet? Jets are for businessmen who are going to contract business almost weekly. And I've told you, Museveni doesn't want to fly as regularly as he used to. Because of his age now, he's afraid. But he keeps a jet with his staff. It is there at Entebbe. Every day there are people who go to check on it. And maybe after a month they fly it, check on its condition. So that's the statement that I wanted to make today, that a huge possibility exists for this country to refuse to pay this debt. Why? Because by the way, even if we don't issue already, Bank of Uganda tells you that we are unable to pay interest on money that we have borrowed locally last financial year. But we have failed to default on external debt. That's why you have started encroaching on the reserve. And both these reports are here for you. I'll share them. I'll put the full reports on WhatsApp group that is there. That's the starting point. Ask yourself, we borrowed what? One way of avoiding a big debt is to reduce on our expenditure. And this expenditure is easy. You start by money meant for workshops, seminars, travel inland and abroad, buying of vehicles. Instead of using 17.5 trillion shilling to repay the loan, you will instead of borrowing to repay, you can still get this money through the budget itself, money that we have collected locally. You just suppress these expenditures. You tell them 1 fleet is enough for you, and they don't have to be 60 vehicles. They can be 20, they can be 10. Including all useless people you see here, they are now in a convoy of 3 vehicles, 10. And then you wonder, who is this one passing? And then they tell you Jessica Rupo. Who here in Uganda wants to harm Jessica Rupo? But she also has like a 20. Nabanja has 7. Ministers these days have 3. And we keep replacing them when they grow old. Or when they are driven, I think they have increased now to 100,000 kilometers. So in the budget itself, if Museveni meant well, you just go back to the budget, suppress these unnecessary expenditure, and then save at least 7 trillion shilling. And therefore you can only borrow maybe about 5. But we are borrowing 17 and use it to buy medals, use it to buy vehicles. So for us, the solution is to deal with our fiscal discipline. But if you can't deal with it as a country, as citizens now, we will alert those who are lending us money that please, you either stop or will not repay the debt. Nga FDC twagala okutegeeza eggwanga nti okusooka tuli mu biseera bya katyabaga eby'ensimbi. Bajeti y'omwaka ogujja ogw'ebyensimbi etandika mu July. Saawa z'olulirwa Parliament. Twagala nnyo abantu bagitegeere nga basinziira ku ssente Uganda ze yeewola okweyimirizaawo. ekifaananyi ekiweebwa mu budget nti kati budget ensimbi zeeyongedde. Budget y'omwaka ogujja zigenda kubeera trillioni 49.9 ziyita 5 nga zeeyongedde okuva ku 48. Naye ekituufu ssente ezitubangibwa zeeyongedde. Mu budget ewedde twasasudde trillioni 15 abatubanja wano mu Uganda n'ebweru wa Uganda. Kati ezo ssente zongeddwako mu budget parliament gyeri mu kutunulira ssaawa zino. Omwaka ogujja tugenda kusasula trillioni 17 ne bilioni 5. Kitegeeza bw'oba ogenze ne figure za ministry y'ebyensimbi nti ebitundu 35 ebya budget byakusasula mabanja. Era oli bw'abadde na kyayenda mu budget nti kigenda kutereera tikyasoboka. Ebitundu 35 mu budget byakusasula mabanja. Bank of Uganda mu ripooti yaayo eya December omwezi oguwedde 12 amba nti ebitundu 7 ku ssente tubikozesa kusasula mabanja agabanjibwa Uganda. Kakati budget n'ojjako ez'emisaala ne allowances ez'abakolera gavumenti n'ojjako ez'oggula esigazaawo trillioni teziwera na 10. So omuntu n'olwekigwanga eggwanga lyaffe likulana bino kyetwagaidde nnyo naddala bannayuganda bategeere bagoberere nnyo bawulirize ku ssente ze twewola ennyingi zino tuzikozesa ki. Bwe twewola ssente 1,000 nga bwe nzikugambye nga baminisita ba Museveni baleeta lisiti zaabwe ez'empapula ze banaasaasanya omwaka ogujja. Twagala kugula medo, mulimu abawagizi ba Museveni omwaka guno abeetaaga okuwa medo. Jim Muwezi najja mu parliament. Twagala kugulira president motoka zino zikaddiye. Museveni alina convoy 13, fleet 13. Bwe mulaba wano ng'ava Entebbe ne motoka 6 ajja mu Kampala, manya nti alinayo eziringa ezo 12 endala. Bw'alinnya helicopter n'agenda entunga mutagenda ne zino zisigalawo wadde muzirabamu nga zitambula muno ziva kunywa amafuta. Eri wabeerayo ezimulinze. Y'omu ku bapulezidenti abasinga okwegagaasa mu nsi yonna. Ne mu myaka gye egy'obukadde Museveni kati abakadde tebaagala nnyo kubuuka mu nnyonyi. Era bw'obuuka mu nnyonyi ezimba bawa n'obuveera bagenda basesema abakadde. Kati Museveni atuuse myaka egyo egisesema buli ddakiika. Naye akyalina ennyonyi emulinda. Mu mwaka atambulayo emirundi nga 2-3. Ennyonyi eri awo ate ennyonyi si nti nkalu. Ebeerako n'abakozi buli lunaku abagyera ne bagifuuyira naye nga terina gyeraga. Kati yava mu America eparkinze ne bagisinga buli lunaku n'egira ne baflyingamu n'enywa amafuta. Bapulezidenti ab'ensi endala enjavu mubalaba nga batuuka ku mikolo. Abamu bagenze okulaba pulezidenti wa America bagendedde mu Emirates. Naye owa Uganda eyeewola bwewozi okwebeezaawo. Ayina ennyonyi n'abakozi bali Entebbe bali awo balinze ennyonyi ya Museveni omukadde atya okubuuka ddi lw'anaagibuukiramu. Kati ebyo bye bituleetedde okutuuka wano we tuli. Kyetutwagala nnyo babe bannayuganda bwe baba bawuliriza ebigenda mu maaso mu parliament bamanye nti ssente ekisinga obukulu twewola bwewozi okwebeezaawo. Mmwe abali wano n'abali eyo ekitongole ekisooloza omusolo okisanga kiri mu maduuka g'abantu kigaggadde kibaggyeko ensimbi. Bwe kimala ozibaggyako ezimu ne zigenda okusasula amabanja, ezisigaddewo tugenda kugula medo, tugule emmotoka, tugule kino. Kati kitwagadde abantu buli addamu okuwuliriza ekigenda mu maaso mu parliament abeere n'ekifaananyi ekyo. Ebintu bye tugenda okusaasaanyako ssente bisaanidde omuntu ayeewola. Kiringanga w'obeera omusajja n'ogenda waka olina famire, abaana tebagenze ku ssomero, ne weewola ssente ne bakusanga nga kyosoose okugula ewaka saati mpya. Bw'omala n'ogulayo omusipi n'ogula empuuta n'oddeeka naye nga weewoze ssente neewole. Abaana bali waka batudde kubanga bonna atunuulira eddagala. Aba National Medical Store abaga nti kati baagala babongeze ssente kubanga babadde batuwa eddagala ery'obwereere tebakyalituwa, baagala bilioni 2. Ezo mu budget teziriimu. Mulimu za kugulira Museveni ne baminisitaazi b'emmotoka. So twagadde eggwanga litegeere budget nga lisinziira ku ekyo kusooka nti omwaka ogujja ebitundu 35 ebya budget bigenda kusasula mabanja ezisigaddewo ezisinga obungi za nsako z'abakungu abakolera gavumenti n'ogulamu bye bakozesa amamotoka mpapula byakulya kati akatono akasigalawo ke kaba Uganda ate nawo ke banaakawo katwala abakolera Museveni bagende nga bakabba kagenda okutuukayo mu byalo nga tekyali kisigaddewo kati awo tuyimiridde. Bank of Uganda mu ripooti yaayo ya December ekugamba nti sente ze basolooza mu bantu mu musolo tezikyamala kusasula mabanja era omwaka oguwedde interest amagoba ku sente ze twewola gatulemeredde okusasula twasasuddeko kitundu kakati ez'ebweru abatubanja ebweru China n'amawanga amala kati China etubanja trillion 11 yesinze tuwola sente nyingi bo bagenze mu reserve. Bank of Uganda buli nsi ekakati wako okuterekayo sente ez'ebigwa bitalaze ezibeereyo mu banka enkulu ze bayita reserve oyinza ozitereka mu sente oyinza ozitereka mu golodi ezo nga ziteekwa bw'obeera ofunye akatyabaga tugeze Uganda bagigaddewo tewakyali kikolebwa nga zisobola okugula ebintu ebweru ebikozesebwa mu ggwanga buli nsi ebeera nazo ze bayita reserves. Katuwaye tulina billions za dola nga ziri 4 tulina 4.3 billion dola eziri mu reserve kati ze tutandise okukwatako nga tusasula abatubanja China ng'ereese noti tubabanjeza entebe kakati zibadde zitusobozesa okugula ebintu okumala emyezi 4 n'ennaku 8 kati olwaleero tuzikendeezeza ziri billion 3 ne miliyoni 600 eza dola zisobola kugula bintu myezi 3 n'ennaku 5 kati bwe tutuuse ng'eggwanga so kituvudde twagala ennyo bannayuganda baba bawuliriza budget bagiwulirize nga bagitegeera nti abasajja ebintu bye basaba ebyo temulowooza nti sente Uganda ezirina gye ziri gye zitudde gwe musolo gwe babasoloozaamu ne bakozesaako ogenda okusasula amabanja ezisigaddewo ne beemiisa kati bw'otunuulira famire Museveni mu maka g'obwa pulezidenti alina abakozi 1,600 n'abalunda enteeze nabo bakozi ba gavumenti basasulwa ku ezo sente ezisoloozebwa ku muwa omusolo mu maka ga Museveni buli ali okujjako abaana abatannakula buli omu kati yafuuka mukozi wa gavumenti era afuna omusaala taata afuna maama afuna n'abaana mukyala we kati yakulira Ministry of Education naye afuna omusaala ate mabega kaawo mujjukira baatugamba nti okubeerwa mukyala wa president nakyo mulimo mu parliament ey'omukaaga Janet Kataha ne bamugulira ne office ku Malcolm X Kololo ne tusaasaanya sente n'okugizimbako fence nti okubeera mukyala wa Museveni nagwo mulimo kakati ne batandika n'okumuwanga budget n'okumugulira office kati tumanye omulimo bayagulekera ani n'agenda okukola ogwa education kubanga mu government tokkizibwa kubeera na mirimu ebiri tosobola kuba na mulimo nga mukyala wa Museveni nga osasulibwa ate n'obeera ne minister of education. Public service does not accept kakati era njagala kukibuuza mu parliament batubulye Janet Kataha akola mulimu kiguli ogw'obwa mukyala wa Museveni yaguleka kati akola bwa Ministry of Education because public service does not allow ewaka mutabani kati ku list y'aba wa Museveni amagezi mutowe sale asokako senior presidential advisor tumuwa omusaala mutabani we Muhoozi Kainerugaba senior presidential advisor tumuwa omusaala Lwabwogo Odrick yawasa muwala wa Museveni senior presidential advisor tumuwa omusaala mwanyina wa Museveni Violet Kajubiri vice chairperson Education Service Commission tumuwa omusaala ne baawe omujamani twamuwa ekitongole kya gavumenti kya Uganda Printing and Publishing Corporation ya kitambuza kati family ya Museveni buli amusanga bw'aba azukuse bakonkona kisenge nze siira baluwa ekolera gavumenti nga nawe bakuwandikira ofulumayo naye mu kisenge n'abawala bonna ewakaabo waliwo kati ali director wa welfare mu State House kwa abawala ba Museveni kati abo abantu bakeera ku makya ne bagala amaduuka gaabwe ne babateekako empingo babasolooza omusolo bagende basasule Museveni ne famire ye Museveni afunemuko obusaasizi eri eggwanga lino Uganda. Thank you very much.